Most welcome to 1604, and we will continue with Craig R. Koester's The Number of the Beast in Revelation 13 in light of Papyri, Graffiti and Inscriptions. And very important, I am presently recording. We ended on page 13. No, sorry, page 6. On the method of gematria. And I will continue reading. I would just mention that we earlier found tendencies of wanting to get to the original, the starting point, and I would call that also the absolute innerness in connection with the absolute outerness, the essence. We've been discussing that earlier in Francois Jacob and many other texts for that matter as well. That is the logocentric tradition to go for the first cause that is in itself uncaused, sheer innerness or sheer outerness, an atom, a molecule, an arche, if you like, but it could also be the absolute subject. We will continue the reading, if you can put the text a bit further up to the very, up to the, that's down the other direction. The method of gematria, perfect. So it's paragraph 3 here on the method of gematria. Investigations into the various forms of the number in textual tradition leads to questions about how best to interpret it. The writer refers to the number of the beast as the key to a riddle. John challenges those who understand or literally have a mind to calculate the number. Riddles were used in scripture, in Greek drama, and as games at Greek and Latin social gatherings. A riddle challenges people to see something the way the author sees it. The person who poses the riddle is initially in the position of having superior knowledge. He knows something the others do not. Accordingly, those who take up the challenge seek to demonstrate that they are equally knowledgeable by solving the riddle. The subject matter of the riddle needs to be familiar enough for the hearer or reader to have a chance of guessing the solution. Yet the riddle maker poses the question in a manner that requires people to see the familiar in unexpected way, in an unexpected way. Well, it was quite trivial. Three one. The use of gematria in riddles. The riddle in Revelation 13 appears at the end of a vision depicting a tyrannical beast rising from the sea to rule the world. A second beast rises from the land and forces people to receive a mark with a sea beast's name or number if they want to engage in commerce. The vision makes use of a satirical imagery to shape the reader's perspectives on the dominant powers in political, religious, and economic life. The riddle is part of this effort. A riddle piques curiosity, making readers want to know what the author sees. Revelation later suggests something similar. When the author assumes that readers will have the mind, nous, needed to connect the beast's 7 heads with the hills and kings of Rome, if they are given enough information. Playing on the numerical values of words was a known practice in riddles. What is essential is that the riddle does not reveal new information. Rather, it challenges readers to make connections between things they already know. When gematria is used, there are 3 steps in the process. First, readers must discern the traits of a person from some wider context. Second, they must think of a name of a person who might fit the traits. Third, they must see whether they can make the name fit the number. Although some assume that John used a numerical code to conceal his meaning from outsiders, this is not the case. Revelation follows the practice of other ancient writers who provided enough information to help readers make the connections. Suggested by the gematria. One example is an apocalyptic text that lists Roman rulers by noting well-known aspects of their reigns, and then giving the numerical values of their first initials. That is interesting. One example. Let's see here. Oh, I can't click. One example is an apocalyptic text that lists Roman rulers. One has the first initial of 10, Alpha for Augustus. And he hands power to another with an initial of 300, Tau for Tiberius, and so on. The satirist Lucian creates a parody of an oracle about Alexander the false prophet by noting the place of the prophet's birth, giving the numerical values of the first 4 letters as clues to his name, indicating that the name was also that of a valiant defender, enabling them to think of Alexander. An early Christian text says, "The Son of the great God will come, incarnate, likened to mortal men on earth, with a name equaling 888. The author assumes that the clues will enable readers to recognize that the Greek letters in the name Jesus add up to 888. I will now make a jump because it's a historical go through here. We talk about the gematria in graffiti at Smyrna, but we can go to page 8 and to some extent some more juicy details. To some extent, well, you were there. Go up a bit. There you go. Exactly. Thank you. To some extent, the use of gematria at Smyrna is similar to that in Revelation, because it involves names. One example is philo is orithmos ati, which means I love her whose name is 1308. Another example is philo is arithmos psla, or 731. I love her whose name is 731. Similar examples have been found in Pompeii. Revelation follows this practice by stating that the beast's number corresponds to its name. The difference is that the examples of graffiti have no literary context. Anyone attempting to decipher them would have to supply the context based on familiarity with popular feminine names of the time. By following that approach, Bagnall proposes that the number 1308 signifies Taiki, which was a common name. He also suggests that 731 might be the name Anthusa, which was not as common, but he cannot think of other possibilities. To facilitate interpretation, Revelation does what the graffiti artist do not do by providing a literary context in which the traits of the beast are more clearly identified. Another instance of gematria is found in a graffiti that links words by pointing out their equivalent numerical value. I will not read this. The initial expression equal calculation is related to the verb for calculate, psyphizo, which is used for the number of the beast's name in Revelation 13:18. As we will see below, some interpreters question whether Revelation expects readers to use gematria, but the graffito makes the objection unlikely. When one adds up the values of the letters of a word, the result is its calculation. When different letter combinations yielded the same total, it was an equal calculation. The idea is that pointing out the equivalent numerical value suggested a relationship between the words. For example, Suetonius records a new calculation in which the name Nero, in Greek the name Nero, it must be, is shown to have the same numerical value as the words "he killed his own mother." The equation underscored that being a matricide defined Nero's character. The language used in the graffiti at Smyrna and in Revelation fits that common understanding of what it means to calculate the value of a word. Quite important. What Bagnall finds intriguing is that correlating the values of Lord and faith might have a Christian character. He does not elaborate the case for this interpretation. But apparently assumes that the Lord would be God or Christ, and that faith would be the way people relate to God or Christ. Based on the location of the plaster layer in which the graffiti was etched, Bagnall thinks it dates from some time before 125 CE. Further research is needed to support this proposal. But it does seem clear that the technique of equating words based on numerical value was known in Smyrna in the 2nd century, and that this technique could be used to assert a connection between faith and lordship. Revelation makes an analogous connection, but with a critical edge. The author's polemical portrayal of the beast calls the faithful to resist complying with certain forms of Roman lordship. (3.3) Interpreting the riddle in Revelation 13:18. The literary setting in Revelation 13 gives readers basic information about the traits of the beast, whose name is the solution to the riddle. The beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. Like the satanic dragon he serves. The similarity shows that the beast is the embodiment of evil. Like the beasts in Dan 7, the beast, in Revelation resembles a lion, bear, and leopard. It exercises authority for 42 months, blasphemes heaven, and makes war on the saints. The blasphemous names on the beast's heads seem to recall the Roman practice of giving emperors titles like God, Son of God, and Lord and God, while portraying the public worshipping. The beast is suggestive of the imperial cult, which was common in Asia Minor throughout the 1st century. Much of what is said about the beast can be applied to various Roman emperors who were said to wield authority over every people and nation. But some aspects are especially reminiscent of Nero. The beast is said to have been slain with a sword and yet to be alive. Interpreters often note that Nero was said to have committed suicide by placing a dagger to his throat. Yet rumors arose that he was still alive and would return. Of all the first century emperors, Nero was remembered for his brutal persecution of Christians. He was called the Beast. And some thought he would come back as the embodiment of Satan. According to Revelation 17:9, the beast's seven heads represent the 7 hills on which the city that rules the world is built. An allusion to Rome. Yet the beast also burns that city with fire. A charge that was uniquely leveled against Nero, who was implicated in the fire that destroyed much of Rome. Let's go and have a look at the gems, the wondrous sights. I'll go back to page 6, lower, the last paragraph. Here is a causal order established. Koester throws this into the game in a marginalized position. The sentence beginning with when, gematria. There are 3 steps in the process, so all of a sudden it just comes. First, readers must discern traits of a person from some wider context. Second, they must think of a name of a person who might fit the traits. Third, they must see whether they can make the name fit the number. This is an interesting causal chain. And we can later read that on page 8, and at the end of the first paragraph, there is just a slight pointer there. It fits the approach of non-compliance like the graffiti in the Agora in Smyrna. Revelations gematria appears in a context dealing with commerce and public life. We are doing this now, put it into context. This is a 3-step process which is being applied in the text. And yes, thank you. And a bit further down, to facilitate interpretation, Revelation does what the graffiti artists do not by providing a literary context in which the traits of the beast are more clearly identified. So now the first of the 3 steps is repeated. Literary context is provided. It is not enough with a singular text. Instead, it needs to be read and made to be true from a sort of a founding context. Nailing it or fixating the meaning of it from the wideness, or you can also change this to the original, the bigger picture, the context, the discourse. That is the originary that sort of gives credulence to the interpretation. Whereas the name Amphusa 731 might be not as strong. We do not have enough original foundation. That was just before 731 Amphusa, the sentence before. It's here. Yeah. So we have, and this is not clearly visible and it's a bit beside, but as I said, the first quote here, it just turns up from Koester. It doesn't have a foundation and it seems to be not as important. Well, it is. It proves the origin, or it goes to seal why something has the force of truth. It has the context. And that is later strengthened when we see the connection, and I won't go into the details, between the different emperors and the subtitles like God, Lord, and so forth. It makes for a bigger connection. Makes an originary logos for the founding of the truth. And you can go to page 10. And we find a context for Nero as well. Nero is used in history. He was the one who set not only Christians ablaze, but the whole capital glaze. He set Rome afire and blamed the Christians, putting him in the wider context. This is contextualization, or the making of context as originary force. And also, I think it's interesting, first comes the name and then comes the number. That should be possible to reverse. It could be the number that gives the name. That holds for Anthusa, Tyche. It could also hold for Nero. This reversal is always possible. And why not the 7 hills of Rome? Could be reversed to be the 700 beasts and vice versa. I would say there are more hills than 7 in Rome. This is a way of establishing a firm position, a base. And from this context, and I think that's probably the best site, 1, 2, 3 there. From this context, you get the absolute truth, the original. From where it came. As we've seen early in this series, you can compare context, discourse, here with initial conditions, which give the classical laws. Can be reversed, should be reversed to be made stronger. What did come first? I think you, Kalle, are the expert on that. You really digged hard into which is first the egg or the hen, chicken or the egg, the number first or the name first, or are there an interesting reversal possible there that can strengthen and make the context even bigger?
Yes. So you can appropriately ask what came first, number or the name, that is the number or the emperor. What came first, the number or the emperor?
Yeah.
Although if you return to the quotation from Suetonius on page, what is this page number here? It's page 9. That Suetonius records a new calculation, you'll see in which the Greek name Nero is shown to have the same numerical value as the words Higilis on matter. The occasion underscored that being a matter side defined Nero's character. So it's very difficult to deny that this is a very strong evidence that even Romans thought that Nero was beast. Most sculptures condemn matricide as being bestial. So it's difficult to, I understand your point, Hans, but it's still difficult to deny that Nero was a beast par excellence. So it's, yes, indeed, context is auxiliary force. But then you can also ask, let's say, if the Emperor Caligula was also a beast in some way,
Yeah.
Or Domitian. So who is more beast-like? But anyhow, this quotation of Suetonius is very that he was a matricide. I don't even know, not even Domitian or Caligula, as far as I know. I'm not a specialist of Caligula's life. I don't think not even Caligula nor Domitian killed their own mother. I think even Roma thought this was really horrific.
Oh.
So, but I don't know. It's a difficult question. Can we establish whether Nero was the most beast-like of them all? So I think yes, we have to. But I'm sure that another scholar perhaps finds more compelling arguments for Caligula.
Oh yeah.
If you sit down and begin to number up the arguments, this is Caligula. He was at these bad traits. So.
I think it is also, this is similar on the quantum physical take where, well, widely simplified, what you do when you observe, so to speak, an atom is you tell the system or the world, the context, discourse, we have an atom. And that changes what observation is. I think the old idea of observation was we don't have any prejudice and we go look and we find the atom and it has no connection. Whereas in quantum physics, you decide there is an atom. There is an observer who set up the experiment for there to be an atom or a wave. So there in physics, you have this reversal. And that is actually strengthening physics, oddly enough.
Yes, so it's the observation that, so to say, defines the killer, so to say, or the beast in this case.
Yeah. I have to take this call.
Perhaps we should stop there.
Yeah, I stopped there. Okay, you can hang on for a while.